The sun was barely up, painting the sky a bruised orange over Maplewood Estates, when the roar of my road roller shattered the suburban silence. I'd been up since 4 a.m., the kind of early where the air smells like dew and regret, getting ready to smooth out the cracked cul-de-sac on Juniper Lane. My crew, 3 guys with more tattoos than teeth, were already sweating through their neon vests, the kind of sweat that stinks of coffee and yesterday's mistakes. This wasn't just a job. It was a promise. A promise to my late dad, who'd spent 30 years keeping these streets perfect, that I'd finish what he started. But Karen Hensley, the self-appointed queen of the Maplewood Homeowners Association, had other plans. She came storming out of her McMansion, her blonde bob bouncing like a bad check, clutching a clipboard like it was the Constitution. "Stop that machine right now, Jake Larson," she screeched, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. The roller's engine growled low, vibrating through my bones, as I leaned out of the cab, squinting against the morning glare. Karen stood there in her pristine white sneakers, arms crossed, her face a mix of fury and smugness. Behind her, 2 guys in cheap security uniforms for cops with badges shinier than their brains flanked her like bodyguards. They called themselves the HOA Compliance Patrol. I called them trouble. "You're tearing up my street," Karen snapped, pointing at the cul-de-sac like she owned it. "This is unapproved. I've got signatures from 20 residents demanding you stop." Her voice cracked with that entitled tremble, the kind that makes your fists itch. I killed the engine, the sudden quiet heavy as a held breath. The air smelled of asphalt and her too sweet perfume, like roses left too long in a vase. "Karen," I said, slow, trying to keep my cool. "This repair's been on the county books for months. Approved. Funded. Done." I tapped the permit tape to the roller's dash, the paper crinkling under my calloused fingers. She didn't even glance at it. "You think you can roll in here with your machine and ruin our aesthetic?" She spat the word like it was poison. "Maplewood has standards, Jake. Standards your father never understood either." That hit like a punch. My dad, who'd poured his life into this neighborhood, who'd mowed lawns for free when widows couldn't pay, was no stranger to Karen's wrath. She'd hounded him over every pothole, every blade of grass out of line, until the stress sent him to an early grave. I felt my jaw tighten, the pulse in my neck thumping like a drum. "Back off, Karen," I said, voice low. "Dangerous. This is happening." But she didn't budge. Instead, she waved her clipboard at the rent-a-cops. "Enforce the rules," she barked. The taller one, a guy with a mustache that looked like it was glued on, stepped forward, hand on a fake badge pinned to his chest. "Sir, you're in violation of HOA Code 47B. He droned, like he'd memorized it from a cereal box. "Cease operations, or we'll impound your equipment." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed off the cookie-cutter houses. "Impound my roller? With what? Your golf cart?" The crew behind me snickered, but the air was thick with tension, like the moment before a storm breaks. That's when I noticed the 3rd guy, not with Karen, but leaning against a pickup truck across the street, arms crossed, watching. He wasn't in a uniform, just jeans and a faded flannel. But something about him, maybe the way his eyes didn't blink, set my nerves on edge. He didn't belong here. Not in Maplewood's manicured bubble. Karen's face turned redder than the stop sign at the corner. "You think this is a joke?" she hissed, stepping closer, her sneakers squeaking on the pavement. "I've got lawyers. I've got connections. I'll have your business shut down by noon." Her words were venom, but I caught a flicker of something else, panic. Maybe, in the way her eyes darted to the rent-a-cops, like she was putting on a show. But the script was slipping. I climbed down from the roller, boots crunching on the gravel, and stood toe-to-toe with her. The air was warm now, the sun climbing, and I could hear the distant hum of a lawnmower, the kind of sound that usually calmed me. "Not today. Karen, you don't run this town," I said, voice steady but burning. "You want to play cop? Go ahead. But this road gets fixed, and you're not stopping it." That's when the flannel guy moved. Slow, deliberate, like a cat stalking a bird. He crossed the street, hands in his pockets, and I caught the glint of a badge on his belt, not a fake one. Problem here? He asked, voice calm but heavy, like the rumble of my roller. Karen spun, startled, her clipboard nearly slipping from her hands. Who are you? She demanded, but her voice wobbled, like she already knew the answer. Sheriff's Deputy Malone, he said, flashing the badge. Got a call about a disturbance. Something about unauthorized security personnel. He glanced at the rent-a-cops, who suddenly looked like kids caught stealing cookies. My crew went quiet, the air thick with the smell of hot tar and anticipation. Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her face paling as Malone pulled out a notepad. Ma'am, he said, nodding at her. Mind explaining why these gentlemen are impersonating officers? The taller rent-a-cop stammered. We're just HOA security. But Malone wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, his boots scuffing the pavement, and I caught the faint jingle of handcuffs on his belt. HOA doesn't have arrest powers, he said, voice like gravel. But you've been throwing around threats like you do. Got IDs? The rent-a-cops fumbled, their fake badges glinting in the sun, and I saw Karen's confidence crack like cheap pavement. It unraveled fast. Malone radioed for backup, and within minutes, 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled up, lights flashing but silent, like predators circling. The neighbors started peeking out, curtains twitching, doors creaking open. Mrs. Delaney, the retired librarian who'd known my dad, stood on her porch, arms crossed, shaking her head. Karen's been lording over us for years. She'd told me once. Over lemonade that tasted like summer. She's got half the HOA scared and the other half bribed. I hadn't believed it then. I did now. Turns out, Karen's compliance patrol wasn't just a power trip. Malone's questions peeled back the layers like asphalt under my roller. The rent-a-cops weren't even licensed security, just guys she'd hired off some sketchy app, paid to wear uniforms and scare people into compliance. They'd been shaking down residents for months, issuing fines for everything from unapproved mailboxes to kids' chalk drawings. Karen pocketed the cash, calling it HOA dues. My stomach churned at the thought, families like the Garcias, barely scraping by, paying her to avoid eviction notices she had no power to enforce. The taller rent-a-cop cracked first, spilling everything to Malone while the other one just stared at his shoes. Karen tried to run, her sneakers squeaking as she bolted for her house. But a deputy caught her by the mailbox, her clipboard hitting the ground with a sad little thud. This is a misunderstanding, she wailed, but her voice was drowned out by the snap of handcuffs. The neighbors were out now, a small crowd forming, their whispers sharp as the morning air. I caught Mrs. Delaney's eye, and she gave me a nod, the kind that said justice was finally rolling through. Malone walked over to me as the deputies loaded Karen and her fake cops into the cruisers. You good to finish this road? He asked, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I nodded, climbing back into the roller, the seat still warm from the sun. The engine roared to life, a deep, satisfying rumble that drowned out Karen's protests. As I pressed the throttle, the machine lurched forward, smoothing the cracked pavement like it was erasing her ring. The smell of fresh asphalt filled the air, thick and clean, and I felt something loosen in my chest, a weight I'd carried since Dad's funeral. The crew got back to work, their laughter louder now, the tension gone. Mrs. Delaney brought out lemonade, the glass sweating in the heat, and we toasted to my dad, to the road, to the neighborhood taking itself back. Karen's McMansion sat quiet, her perfect lawn already looking a little less perfect. The sheriff's report later showed she'd been scamming thousands, maybe more, and the county was pressing charges. The HOA was dissolved by nightfall, a new board elected with Mrs. Delaney at the helm. As the sun set, painting the sky a fierce red, I parked the roller and leaned against it, the metal warm against my back. The cul-de-sac was smooth now, flawless, a promise kept. I thought of Dad, his calloused hands, his quiet pride in a job well done. Keep the streets honest, he'd said once, his voice rough but warm. I smiled, the ache in my chest softening. Maplewood wasn't perfect, but it was ours again, and that was enough.